The dense scent of oil and salt hung heavy in the humid New Orleans air, blending with the distant echo of a ship's horn. Elias, a veteran sailor with more decades at sea than on land, felt the familiar sway of the Orleans Star beneath his feet. As he inspected the engine room, a chill ran down his spine, cold and sharp, belying the stifling heat of the environment. Suddenly, the vision, not a memory, but a burning premonition. Orange flames dancing amidst choking black smoke, the deafening roar of twisting metal, the ship tilting violently. He felt the cold ocean engulf him, the growing darkness. It was fast, brutal, and so real that Elias staggered, his heart pounding in his chest. This was his last voyage, and he had just seen his end. The premonition clung to Elias like a barnacle to a ship's hull, a chilling shadow in his thoughts. The smell of diesel, once familiar, now carried a faint aroma of burning in his mind, a constant omen, like the distorted heartbeats of a giant sea creature. The icy water invading every compartment, rising relentlessly, covering everything in its path. The futile despair on the faces of the crew he knew so well, men who had shared laughs and dangers with him for years. He had to find the source. He had to reverse it. With every bolt tightened, every gauge checked, the tension mounted, a tight knot in his stomach. Elias felt the crushing weight of responsibility, not just for himself, but for the entire crew, for their families waiting for them on land, for their lives. The ship would not sail with him on board if there wasn't a chance to avert that grim fate. He could not allow that vision to become reality, not after so many years avoiding the dangers of the sea, escaping furious storms and treacherous icebergs. With every passing minute, the urgency intensified, time running against him on an invisible, relentless clock, whose hands seemed to move faster with every sound of metal expanding from the heat. He felt like a detective in a crime about to happen, but the killer was not a man, but fate itself, smiling silently. With every creak of the hull, Elias saw the Orleans Star descend into the depths, taking all his hopes with it. He knew the Orleans Star was doomed, but how? Where? Sweat trickled down his forehead as he plunged into the inspection task, the focus of a man about to defy death. His calloused fingers slid over pipes and cables, feeling every inch of that metallic, noisy labyrinth that was the engine room. Captain Johnson, a pragmatic man with a well-groomed gray beard and eyes that saw everything, watched him from a distance. "Everything all right here, Elias? You look like you've seen a ghost." His grave voice cut through the constant hum of the machinery, but Elias barely heard him, his mind consumed by the search, his eyes scrutinizing every dark corner, every dusty wire, as if the darkness itself could hide the answer. He seemed like a hunter, but his prey was invisible, a premonition of what was to come. The vision haunted him with terrifying clarity, fire devouring steel, twisting it into contorted iron, the ship's walls pulsing with an infernal heat, the muffled sound of internal explosions. Days turned into an exhausting routine for Elias. He refused to leave the engine room, inspecting every system, every connector, as if his life, and that of everyone on board, depended on it. And for him, it truly did. The air down there, dense and hot, seemed to suffocate him, mingling with the acrid smell of grease, oil, and heated metal, a combination that now seemed ominous, almost a smell of doom. Drops of sweat ran down his forehead and arms, staining his work clothes, but he didn't even notice. Absorbed in his mission, his senses sharpened only to the imminent danger. Maria, his wife, called every day, her soft voice laden with concern and a faint tone of reproach that he ignored, almost like a distant echo. "You're working too hard, Elias. It's almost time to come home. Let the younger ones take care of it. You deserve to rest. Think of us." But Elias couldn't stop. The image of the fire dancing in his mind was a constant torment, a dissonant melody playing incessantly in his ears, preventing him from finding peace, even in the rare moments he tried to rest. With the rusty tools he knew like the back of his hand and the steady hand of years of experience at sea, Elias began the repair. The metallic clang of wrenches and pliers echoed in the engine room, a constant rhythm against the accelerated and anxious beat of his own heart. It seemed like an exposed nerve, ready to cause immense pain. He thought of Maria, her soft voice, their cozy little house with sunlight streaming through the windows, the garden she loved so much and which he barely had time to tend. He thought of the quiet mornings they dreamed of sharing, the fishing trips on the lake, the stories he would tell their grandchildren. He could not allow a simple wire to take all that away, not after everything they had built together, every sacrifice, every moment of joy, every challenge overcome. With every passing moment, the heat and the smell of metal intensified, and the premonition seemed more real, closer to materializing, like a shadow lengthening under a bonfire's glow. But Elias was not a man to give up, not after so many years facing storms and dangers, defying the ocean's fury and the elements' cruelty. With a final tighten of the connection, Elias completed the repair, his muscles aching and his hands trembling slightly from the concentrated effort. The wire was secure, insulated, the immediate threat neutralized. The silence, once oppressive and full of omens, now seemed like a deafening relief, a choir of angels. He had done his part. The ship was safe, for now. A sigh of relief, almost inaudible, escaped his lips, blending with the persistent hum of the machinery, which now seemed like a satisfied purr. He felt he had betrayed fate, and a dangerous sense of euphoria began to grow within him. Every turn of fresh electrical tape, every connection meticulously redone, was a direct challenge to the fate he had witnessed, a silent struggle for survival against the invisible forces of chance. Sweat streamed down his face, blurring his vision, but he didn't stop. The adrenaline coursing through his veins propelled him, his mind focused solely on the task, like a surgeon in a life-or-death operation. Captain Johnson appeared again, this time with an expression of surprise mixed with a touch of admiration. "Still here, Elias? I thought by now you'd be feet up, celebrating your retirement at some bar on dry land. Don't you want to leave a little something for the others?" Elias merely nodded, his lips pressed into a thin line, too concentrated for conversation, barely registering the captain's presence, only the incessant hum of the machinery. The wiring was precarious, an invisible spiderweb of danger, woven by the passage of time and the constant vibration of the engine. The Orleans Star finally set sail, gliding through the dark, deep waters of the Mississippi River under a sky that still held purple hues of dawn, promising a new day and a new beginning. Elias felt a cautious relief, almost disbelief, a strange sensation that he had, in fact, outsmarted the inevitable. He watched the horizon slowly swallow the port of New Orleans, the city lights diminishing until they became tiny dots in the distance, a past left behind. The salty smell of the ocean replaced the city's aroma, a reminder of the new chapter beginning, both for the ship and for him, a new breath of life. The voyage passed without incident, each day at sea a silent victory against the premonition that still lingered like a cold, persistent mist in his mind, refusing to completely disappear, like an invisible scar. Captain Johnson, oblivious to Elias's internal struggle, sincerely praised his work, patting him on the shoulder. "Always reliable, Elias. You are one of the last of a kind. We'll miss you around here. The sea won't be the same without you." The crew, a mix of young and tired faces, celebrated the approaching coast, the lively murmur of voices filling the deck. They played cards in the mess hall, told stories of past voyages, and dreamed of returning home, to their families, their warm beds. Elias, however, remained on guard, his eyes scanning the ocean as if he expected the premonition to leap from the waves at any moment, for the fire to rise from the depths of the sea. That feeling that fate was just waiting, like a silent shark circling its prey, never completely left him. It was a constant whisper in his mind. The sound of waves rhythmically hitting the hull, the wind whistling through the ropes, and the cries of the gulls. Everything seemed like a lullaby that hid a dark melody, a constant reminder of his vision. The ship docked safely in the port of Charleston, South Carolina, under a scorching sun that kissed his skin, drying the sweat of his labor. Elias felt the solid ground beneath his feet, a huge weight lifting from his shoulders, the certainty that he had fulfilled his mission. A tired but genuine smile formed on his lips. He had cheated death, or so he thought. The breeze from the land was different from the sea, lighter, more inviting. The night in Charleston was a celebration, a glorious farewell to life at sea. In a noisy, vibrant port bar, with country music filling the air, and the unmistakable scent of cold beer and fried food lingering, Elias toasted his retirement with the crew, his companions from many journeys. He raised a glass, his expression lines deepened by his sincere smile and genuine joy. To the end of the road, lads. May the winds always be in your favor, and may your ships never meet flames, nor hidden rocks. His voice, hoarse from decades of shouting against wind and sea, mingled with the crew's laughter, a joyous chorus of goodbyes and good wishes, of promises to reunite in some other port, in some other life. Elias felt light, almost euphoric, the weight of the world seemingly having finally lifted from his shoulders, replaced by the promise of peace, of days without worries and tranquil nights. Maria called, her voice full of relief and expectation, weeks of anxiety finally giving way to contagious joy. "Come home soon, old man. I can't bear to miss you any longer. Dinner's waiting, and the garden misses you." He promised to be there soon, and the sound of her voice brought comforting warmth to his heart, the certainty that life on land awaited him with all its comfort and security. On a lazy, sunny afternoon, with the salty breeze from Charleston Bay caressing his weathered face, Elias felt a pang of longing for the sea. It was a familiar call, a whisper from a world he had left behind. Elias had just an instant to look up, a flash of horror in his blue eyes, once filled with wisdom and the vastness of the ocean. But in the calm waters of a forgotten pier, on solid ground, where he believed he was safe, his struggle against destiny ended where he least expected it. What else does fate hold in the shadows, waiting to collect its debt in such unexpected and treacherous ways? The cable, corroded by the crane's rust, overburdened by years of abandonment and weathering, snapped and broke with a final, piercing metallic shriek that echoed in the solitude of the pier, a cry from the structure itself. The metal structure, with an agonizing metallic groan, collapsed towards him, a giant and merciless shadow. Elias had no time to react. His reflexes, once sharp from the sea, now slow with age and the overwhelming surprise of the unexpected attack coming from land. The impact was swift, a dull, crushing blow that threw him into the cold, dark water of the bay with a dry, fatal thud. He struggled briefly, the shock of the cold paralyzing his limbs, his lungs filling with water. The water which he knew and loved so well now filled his lungs with an icy final embrace, the last echoes of the distant premonition of the burning ship, mingling with the darkness that engulfed him, a cruel and silent irony of fate. The crane, now a twisted mass of metal on the pier, was the sole silent observer of his destiny. A destiny he tried and failed to avoid in a final act of fate that could not be cheated no matter how hard he fought, but one that still ran in his veins, an intrinsic part of his being, like the salt in his blood. He decided to fish from a nearby abandoned pier, a quiet and isolated spot where only the distant chirping of birds and the gentle lapping of waves broke the silence, a private refuge of peace. He cast his line, the hook disappearing into the dark, calm water, a ritualistic gesture he had repeated for decades, almost a second wind, a meditation. The smell of dampness and moss, of old wood and salt, hung in the air, a contrast to the fresh scent of the open ocean he had once known. The rusty crane, a forgotten relic of bygone days, stood like a skeleton against the clear blue sky, its rusted chains hanging like desolate arms, a shadow of what it once was, waiting. Suddenly, a dry, sharp crack split the air, like a bone breaking under pressure. Elias was gone, not in the fire of the sea, as his vision had promised,